Today I'm going to be drinking Tequila Reposado tequila. Why do I do this to myself? Hello whiskey fans and hello tequila fans, and happy Cinco de Mayo. It is the 5th of May, that's what Cinco de Mayo means. For anyone that doesn't know, Cinco de Mayo is the day that commemorates the victory of the Mexican army over the French Empire on the 5th of May 1862. So Cinco de Mayo is obviously a huge cause for celebration for anyone of Mexican ancestry. It's often confused with Mexican Independence Day, which it's not, that's in September. But you can sort of understand why people would confuse the two because they obviously have similar themes. If anyone watching this is really up on their Mexican history and they want to fill in any details on Cinco de Mayo and what it's all about and what it means to you, feel free, because I love Mexico, but I'm sure there's someone out there that knows a lot more about it than I do. For me, I'm going to celebrate Mexican Cinco de Mayo by drinking some 12-pound tequila. This stuff, I always thought that this Sierra tequila was a sourced product. I never really believed that it was actually from a distillery, because you see this stuff in all of the supermarkets here in the UK, and well, look at the label. Sierra tequila, it's got a little Mexican man in a hat with a guitar. So got these bizarre medals, probably the first one that's ever actually paid attention to this label, but it's got little medals on it. One of them says the god of the sun, one of them is the god of the agave, something to do with a pyramid, and something to do with lightning. Heche in Mexico, so made in Mexico, and it's also handcrafted from agave azul, so that's the blue agave plant. So tequila is not made from grain or sweet corn, maize or anything like that like we're used to with our scotch and bourbon. It's actually made from a cactus looking plant called the agave plant. So these agave plants that they grow in Mexico, they're almost all spike, so they hack the outer spikes off until they're left with the heart of the plant, which they call a piña. And once they've removed the spikes, they roast those hearts of the plant, they mash them, ferment them, and distill them into tequila, or mezcal, which we'll get onto later. This particular tequila is made in Jalisco. That's probably not the correct pronunciation, but Jalisco is the area of Mexico where a lot of tequila is made. I don't actually know what the laws are in Mexico with regards to colouring tequila, but this tequila, there's two versions of it. There's the silver version, which is unaged, and there's this reposado, so rested, so barrel matured. They actually mature this for a relatively brief period in oak casks, and that's where it picks up this rather wonderful pale gold straw colour, which I don't know, but I would believe that's probably natural. But what I was talking about before, I don't think this is a sourced product. I think it actually does come from this Distilleria Sierra. So Sierra is Spanish Mexican for sur, also means mountains. And if you read the back label, the Distilleria Sierra, located on the historical hacienda in Guadalajara, the capital of tequila, is home to the award-winning Sierra tequila. Blah blah blah, master distiller, blah blah blah. So it does actually seem that Sierra is a proper distillery. So important details on the label. We know it's aged, but probably for not very long. We know that it's 38% ABV, so 2% lower than you're allowed to release any bourbon or scotch, but 38% is actually the legal minimum here in the UK. I have heard some suggestions that in the US it has a 40% minimum, the same as whiskey, but I haven't been able to confirm that. So anyone in the US, if this stuff is available at 40 or 38% where you are, please let me know. Most importantly though, this bottle, if you've seen it in a shop, you're probably wondering where the little hat is, because this bottle actually comes with a really tacky plastic sombrero that sits on the top of the metal screw top, and sadly mine appears to have been stolen. I think it's probably missing when I bought this from the shop, So yeah, someone has robbed me of the most important part of this bottle, sadly. Speaking of the shop, this stuff here in the UK is available for about £12–13, so it's really bottom shelf budget price point. So it's going to be competing with your blended scotch, your cheap rums, your vodka. So this stuff is actually in famous gross price territory, so it's really got no business being any good. But let's get some in the glass and see what it's like. Screw top, obviously, probably goes without saying. So if that was a whiskey, that's a lovely pale natural looking colour. But actually for a tequila or a mezcal, that's actually on the darker end of things, because a lot of tequila and mezcal, being unaged or very, very briefly aged, they are almost always pale or nearly clear. So the first thing I'm going to say, bearing in mind that it's 38% ABV, it's actually not underpowered and weak and watery at all. It is mild, definitely mild, and not immature, not rough. It's quite salty. There is a slight rough spiritiness to the nose of this one, but it's not dominating. It really doesn't come across as immature as such. And there's also some lovely sweet, creamy, buttery notes on the aroma of this one. Let's see how it tastes. So the palate of this one, I think, is much more interesting, infinitely more interesting than the aroma. Getting lots of saltiness, it's quite oily, getting some lovely, interesting, fatty, oily notes on the palate of this, as well as some sour, bitter and herbaceous agave notes. And from the brief period that this is spent in those oak casks, getting some rather nice, sweet, creamy vanilla notes. It's going to try a little bit more and see to the finish. So as for the finish, it's medium length actually. I think one of the things that I really like about tequila and mezcal is they are so different to whiskey. But because you've got this complete juxtaposition between the sweetness, especially in the ones that are briefly barrel aged, that sweetness and the saltiness and the herbal, herbaceous flavours, you get some really nice contrasting effects in the flavours, and that really makes up for the fact that a lot of tequila is bottled at lower strength. In a way, it really makes up for that low ABV by almost confusing your palate and your senses. It's one of the things that I love about tequila and mezcal. They seem to have this really curious flavour profile that you don't really get in anything else, because in my opinion they have that really curious combination of sweet, savoury, sour and bitter all together, and there's really a fight for dominance between all four of those classic flavour areas, and no one of them ever comes out on top, and I really like that. You probably will notice though that my notes for this one on the nose and the palate are a little bit on the brief side, and that is because there's not that much to say about this. It is a nice tequila, but it's simple. I think this one, as with a lot of the bottom shelf products, they're made for the masses. They're made to appeal to people who don't necessarily want a lot of flavour. But I think this product from Sierra, bearing in mind that it's very, very cheap, it's mild, it's inoffensive, but it has got a little bit of that tequila experience to get you interested. I do think that tequila is a little bit of an acquired taste, and it's definitely a taste that I've acquired. I don't think it's probably not something that anyone tries for their first time, having never tried anything like it, and they'll immediately love it. But I think it's definitely something well worth getting into, in the same way that something like olives or black coffee or blue cheese or something like Marmite is an acquired taste, and if you can get accustomed to it, it can be really rewarding to get into. The big downside to this particular tequila though is that it is that little bit mild and sanitized and a little bit simple, but the world of tequila and mezcal is definitely much more than that. As we'll be seeing in my next video, where we're going to be looking at something a little bit more exciting. See you there. Thanks for watching.